So welcome to our first Alkaline Diet Success Formula session. This is week 1, and you've all had the overview. You've had the introductory session by now, so we've covered some of the basic principles in that. But what I want to do today is really get into the fabric of the Alkaline Diet Success Formula in a big way. And to do that, I just want to share with you first of all, I'm just going to get onto slides here. Here we go. And we'll go on to the slideshow. So I want to show you Eileen's Alkaline Diet Success in 3 weeks. Now, many of you have seen this already, but I think this is absolutely amazing, the way that Eileen was able to literally transform her health within 3 weeks. And I'm just having a little bit of here we go. Sometimes these slides get a little bit sticky. So here's the difference. The slide on the left hand side was the 15th of December 2010, and on the right hand side we've got the end of the first week of January 2011. What you've got to remember here is that that was Christmas and New Year period. And you know, I was just blown away by the way that Eileen looks so different in those pictures. If you look at her eyes, the clarity, the brightness of the eyes, if you look at the skin tone, the shape of the face, the energy levels. I know the hairstyle is slightly different, and the face has changed shape, as you can see, in just 3 weeks. Now, that's an indication of what you can do using this approach. And I actually had a 12-week program to start with this approach, and when I started to get results like Eileen's and other people's results in as little as 3, 4, 5 weeks, I thought, well, actually I need to condense this. I need to have this in a 6-week program. So that's what we're doing here. My aim is to enable you to have those results and more in a matter of weeks. And if you follow the principles that I'm going to be going through, it's very, very achievable. So I'm going to be talking you through the 6 weeks to alkaline diet and success that we're going to be focusing on here. But before I do, I'm going to be a little bit controversial and in your face as a coach. After all, my contention is that you probably wouldn't be here if any of the other approaches to health, nutrition, diet, weight loss had really delivered for you. We've all come across different approaches. There's lots of conflicting information out there. I think what I want to say up front is that being extreme with anything just doesn't work. And many of you have already established that already. I'm just talking to you all. I've realized that you've been on some very interesting and varied journeys on the health and weight loss route. And anything too extreme just doesn't work. And I'm going to be touching on that a number of times as we go through this session, because what I'm about to show you is an approach which is very balanced. It's not what you would expect necessarily to see, because Phil Richards, whom I'm hoping that many of you have listened to, my interview with Phil Richards was really quite amazing. He actually coaches top-level sports people, Premiership footballers, rugby union players, athletes, all over the world at international level. And he said that in order to get your health right, and we're talking top-level sports here, so the margins are very narrow, it's important to start with what you think, then with what you drink, and only then with what you eat. And for that reason, I've taken Phil's sort of blueprint, if you like, and blown it out a little bit more. And therefore, we're going to be working through 6 weeks of content. And the first week is all about winning the mental game, because as Phil Richards quite rightly points out, what you think is probably the most important contributor of either acidity or alkalinity into your body. And therefore, winning the mental game of health, is absolutely critical. Then obviously he goes on to what you drink. So we're going to be talking about proper hydration tonight as well as winning the mental game, because when those two things are in place, when you have a game plan to win and you have proper hydration, the rest is really very, very easy. But you're probably expecting that I might talk about lots of green drinks and lots of green vegetables and leafy greens tonight. Well, we're going to talk about all of that stuff and more next week. But that's after we've created the foundation that we're going to create tonight. So Alkalize to Add Vitality will be at week 2. Week 3 will be all about gentle detoxing through a balanced diet. Now, this is what I mean about not being extreme. And I'll give you an example of a conversation I had just this morning with somebody who is actually following a very severe or a significant cleanse, shall we say, at the moment, and actually had salad for breakfast. Now, that person was feeling a little bit cranky, I think it's fair to say, during the course of the conversation. And in a sense, it's not surprising because you actually need to eat a balanced diet. You need fats, you need carbohydrates, you need protein. And if you're eating salad for breakfast and eating salad most of the day, you're actually going to be cranky because your brain isn't getting the right fats, you're feeling hungry, you're not feeding your muscles with the nutrients that they need, you're not getting the protein. So gentle detoxing through a balanced diet is what I'm going to be advocating. I don't go for these radical detox processes because I think they leave people in a very difficult place, physiologically, mentally and emotionally. We're going to be talking about regular alkalizing exercise on week 4, and I've got some great material to share with you there. Exercise can either be acidifying or alkalizing. Now that might be a surprise to you. If you over-exercise, you can actually create acid in the form of cortisol and adrenaline, which can cause you to hold on to fat around the middle. And therefore, I'm going to be showing you how to exercise in the fat-burning range, which will actually be alkalizing to your system and will help you not only feel great, but look great and rid yourself of any excess weight much more easily than you would otherwise do so. We're looking at stress for success in week 5. And you heard me talking in the introductory session about the importance of your thoughts. Thoughts can either be acidic or alkaline forming, and therefore we're going to be looking at how you can use stress in your life for success using the alkaline principles. And then finally in week 6 we'll be looking at how you build momentum with this whole approach. So we'll have built a real foundation through the 6 weeks, and then it's a matter of keeping that going, accelerating the progress and making it happen. And this isn't a one-off. What I aim for you is to avoid the diet trap for the rest of your life. Many of you, and I know this from speaking to you, have been in the diet trap, been in it, you've been out of it, you've been in it, you've been out of it, sometimes called the yo-yo diet. Now, it's not healthy, it's not good for your heart, it's not good for your psychology, it's not at all good for your motivation, and it's not good for your health actually. And what I'm going to give you is a recipe for avoiding the diet trap for the rest of your life. And I think that's profoundly important. And it does run counter to a lot of the information that's out there, which is why my plea is that you suspend some of your disbelief, that you come at this with a totally open mind, and that you take on board what I'm going to say, because it does work. Look at Eileen's results, look at the results that I shared from my personal experience, and all of the other people that I've worked with and am working with who are experiencing terrific results with this. And it's not just me saying this. You know, I've got a whole load of experts whose interviews I'm sharing with you who are using this approach with top-level sports people. You know, people like Phil Richards are consulted at the very highest level, and I think that says an awful lot. So that's what we'll be covering over the next 6 weeks. It's going to be pretty rapid. So what I'd like you to do is take some notes, take some great notes, but most importantly, it's vital that you take action with this stuff, because it's action that gets results, and it's action that's going to create the foundation of the changes that we're making. So let's talk about winning the mental game first. I've touched on this already, and I touched on it in the overview session, that one of the challenges with the traditional approaches to diets and dieting is that they just don't condition new habits and patterns for life. Because, as I said at the beginning, my contention is if they did, you wouldn't need to be either listening to this live or listening to a recording of it later on. Any approach that you've tried in the past simply hasn't set up lifetime habits and patterns for you. And I believe that's wrong. I believe that's unfair. I believe it keeps you stuck. And my desire, my aim, my passion is to help you break free of that diet trap, so that the habits and patterns that we're conditioning now in the next 6 weeks will stay with you for life, and you can enjoy a lifetime of abundant energy, vitality and health, because it really is your birthright. So that's what we're going to be doing, and it's very important therefore that you start to put these things into practice and that we just don't talk about them. As I said in the introductory session, to know and not to do is not yet to know. So you may be thinking, I know this, but if you're not doing it, you don't really know it. Now, I also touched on powerful reasons when we were going through the introductory session, because powerful reasons are what get you to the point of willingness. Many of you have already arrived at that point of willingness, but the reason why I don't accept everybody on this program is that not everybody has got to that point. They're not yet at the point where they're willing to do whatever it takes to rid themselves of the diet trap, to condition the new habits and patterns which will set them up for success in this area of health for a lifetime. Now, your own powerful reasons are unique to you. I did share some of mine on the overview, and I've read and discussed with a number of you some of yours, but one of the things I'd like you to do, and I'll make this clear as we get towards the end of today, is to crank up the pleasure or the pain on your powerful reasons, because these will get you to that point of willingness where there is really no alternative. It's what Tony Robbins and others call threshold. It's the point at which that level of pain is intolerable and you are prepared to do whatever it takes to change it. And I've got the formula. You just have to get to the point of willingness, because until you get to the point of willingness, you won't take my formula and use it. And this is what I've experienced, and which is why I haven't accepted everybody onto this program, because they weren't at the point of willingness and ready to go with it. So your powerful reasons at this stage are everything. Now, I've never come across other approaches to diets and dieting that crank up the pleasure and the pain on powerful reasons, but I can assure you that from my own experience and from the experience of the people I've worked with and continue to work with, it is a fundamental difference between people who are successful in this area and those who aren't. Now, we also talked about SMART goals in the introductory session, so I don't want to go into those in more detail, but SMART is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic and time-bound. And it's really important that you set realistic SMART goals. And again, where we've already had our coaching conversation together, I've worked with you to establish one or two really good SMART goals that are very measurable, very achievable, and can be chunked back into sub-steps, if you like, which give you a very measurable way of achieving your progress and results over time. I haven't talked about these next couple of points yet, and they are really, really important. What I want to set up with you is a winning approach to measurement and success criteria, because so many approaches are looking down the wrong end of the telescope. They start with weight loss. If you start with the philosophy that we're losing weight in order to get healthy, it's actually very easy to lose weight. You can lose weight by stopping drinking water, but is that going to get you healthy? No, it's not, because you're actually not going to lose fat. You're going to hold on to fat, but you're going to lose muscle mass, you're going to lose water, you're going to lose protein, you're going to lose all the things that you don't want to lose. So I want you to put the scales away, please, for at least a month as we start together now. And this is really, really important. And I've spoken to a couple of people who struggled with this a little bit and couldn't resist getting back on and off them. Please, please put them away yourself, or ask somebody to put them away for you, because they're not your best friend at the moment. What you're going to find is that added energy and inch loss will show up first before weight loss. And there are a number of reasons for that. One is, as I say, the approach that we're working with is getting healthy in order to lose weight, rather than losing weight in order to get healthy. And it's a very different philosophy, very different approach. And the other thing is, as you're turning fat to muscle, muscle weighs heavier and it's denser. And so you're not immediately going to see the pounds rippling away, but they will come off. It's a bit like wealth creation. The money's the last thing to show up. But I've been talking to a number of you, and you know your body's already experiencing these changes, and you know that it's happening. And in fact, one conversation I was having this week, the person couldn't even put it into words what they were experiencing. They just knew that things were changing, and it was all about added energy, inch loss, vitality, better sleep pattern, better stress tolerance, less niggles, and all of the added benefits that I really want for you and that you will experience as you go through this 6-week program. So this is our approach to measurement. Please put the scales away. Take some base measurements on inches around your waist, around your hips, around your upper arms, around your upper thighs, and use those after a few weeks. Not initially, I would give it at least 3 or 4 weeks, but use the inch loss as a better indicator of your progress, because I promise you the inches will go. And you saw that from that pair of trousers, that pair of jeans that Eileen was sporting at the end of the last session, when I could see they were literally hanging off her. And it's quite amazing how the inch loss will come about. Very importantly as well, I want you to be accountable to someone for your results. So having set your SMART goals, having got your powerful reasons, I want you to share them. You'll be sharing them with me because we've got a coaching session together, but I also want you to share them with a partner or a buddy and be accountable to that other person for your success and your results. Because magical things happen when we do that. Magical things happen when we commit. It's almost like there's a great quote, I think it was W.H. Murray, the moment one commits, then providence moves too. All manner of circumstances move to our aid. And this has been my experience in not just health and weight loss, but in life generally. The moment one commits, then providence moves too. And I can assure you that when you commit here, you will get results. And then finally, on this point, a number of you may have already heard me talk about this book called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. This is a quite profound book because it embodies exactly the philosophy that we're working with here. Small, simple changes implemented every day compound to produce a massive difference, and not necessarily over a long period of time either. It will be a matter of weeks, but you have to apply the small, simple changes. And the reason why I suggest this book most strongly, and I'd love you all to read it and apply it, is that it will help you in so many areas than just health and weight loss. It will help you in your financial life. It'll help you in your relationships. It'll help you in every aspect of your life, because it's actually a philosophy that is embodied in nature. And we live in a society where we want things quickly, and this is to some extent why people go for extremes with health and weight loss, because we're sort of led to believe in this internet society that there is a push-button remedy, that there's a weight loss pill out there that will sort it out for us, or that there's some magical potion that will give us the elixir of life. But the reality is nature moves in its own way, and yet it moves very, very effectively over time. And the slight edge principles that we're going to apply and you will be embodying here will literally change your life. As I say, if you read the book as well, you will so get exactly the philosophy that we're talking about, and it will blow out all of those limiting beliefs that you might have about diets and dieting and extreme approaches, eggs and grapefruit and cabbage and on all of the things that you might have had to try and exist on, which are just not real life and will never set you up for a lifetime of success in the mental game of health. So some critical points there on winning the mental game of health. It's the most important component of the whole process. As Phil Richards says, as I've come to believe, because the moment I won the mental game, it was over. It was game over, and I had won it. And that's what I want for you. So I really want you to get some focus on this. Come up with your powerful reasons. Crank up the pleasure and the pain. Get your SMART goals out there. Be accountable to somebody for those. Put the scales away and read and apply the slight edge, and you'll be amazed at how you're going to win this game. So, the power of your subconscious mind. Now, I haven't talked about this before, something I didn't touch on in the overview, but your subconscious mind is the driving force in your life. It controls probably more than 80% of your behaviors, but the thing is that's going on subconsciously. It's below the surface. But the moment that you start to be able to apply some principles around the management of your subconscious mind, then everything starts to change. Now, just want to give you a little bit of background on the subconscious, and there's a great book on this, by the way, called The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. I read it twice in the last 3 months, and it is absolutely amazing. It's a fantastic book. I've got it on my Kindle. But the point is that the subconscious mind actually becomes capped effectively by the age of 7. this is the theory behind it, and I think there's a lot of it borne out in physiology as well. That by the age of 7, all of this information has got in there, all these beliefs, all of these values, all of these principles that we've heard, that we've taken on board, and the function of your subconscious mind in life is to keep you safe. Now that's actually quite handy if you think about it. Your subconscious mind will stop you jumping off a cliff. It will cause you to feel fear in many situations, some of which it's valuable for you to feel fear in, and others in which it's totally unhelpful for you to feel fear in. And I'll be talking a little bit more about fear in a moment. But everything that went into your subconscious by about the age of 7, it gets capped in there. It's almost like a concrete lid on it, if you like. And if you're fortunate, as you go through life and you do a certain amount of self-development and you have some experiences, good, bad, and indifferent in life, sometimes quite painful, you may start to begin to be able to examine some of the contents of that subconscious mind. And when you do, it's actually quite profound, because you realize that some of those beliefs that were in there are not your beliefs at all. They're the beliefs of maybe your parents or people who were around at that time, or they're the result of situations or circumstances at that early stage in your life. And you think, actually, that's completely irrelevant to my life today. And an example from my own life might be that both of my parents had a very much of an employment mindset when I was of that age, although my father did subsequently start his own business successfully. But at the age of 7 and below, the words that I heard were all around: work hard at school, get lots of qualifications, get a good job, save for a pension, and you'll be fine. Well, of course, we all know that really doesn't quite stack up anymore. And I really struggled when I started my own business with this whole philosophy of security, because my subconscious mind's job was to keep me safe. Now, I've seen lots of evidence in the last couple of weeks. Some of the people that I've talked to about this program have been feeling a lack of security about what might be involved in this, because it's different, because it's not everything that everybody else is saying. And as I say, that's for a reason, because everything else hasn't worked for you yet. Therefore, some of what I'm going to say to you might create some sense of fear, not as in a jumping off a cliff sort of way, but fear in sense of, well, would this really work? Is this guy trying to rip me off? Is this actually realistic? So I just urge you to see if you can suspend some of that disbelief for a while, because handling your fear is going to be a very necessary part of this process. And the people that I'm working with one-to-one who are listening to this call will know exactly what I mean by that, because the fear always comes up. There are lots of fears. We all have them. And as I say, we have them because our subconscious mind's job is to keep us safe. And therefore we start to threaten that subconscious mind when we start to do something which is actually a little bit different. But I'm sure you will recognize from your previous experience that whenever you've gone through a major change in life, you've had to handle your fear. And if you back off at the first sign of fear and pull back and think, actually, this isn't going to work because I'm feeling fear, then you will never go forward. You actually have to show up, step up, and then, as Susan Jeffers says, feel the fear and do it anyway. Now, it's Warren Buffett that has the great quote, 80% of success is showing up. And I agree with him to a point, but you have to go beyond that, because unless you step up and then feel the fear and do it anyway, you won't actually benefit from whatever is going on. So information is great, but you've got to step up to the information, you've got to take action on the information, and then you've got to feel the fear and do it anyway. Nothing that I'm going to be sharing with you is in any way dangerous. I want to make that point very clearly. But because it's different, it could create some fears, and I just want to set that expectation right now, because I've seen it in at least a couple of the people that I've talked to in some of their reactions. Now, to help you with all of this, I've recorded a special interview with a clinical hypnotherapist called Adam Eason. And Adam had some really great tips to share, which I'll talk about very briefly now. But what I'd like you to do as part of your home play, as I'm going to call it, I'm not going to call it homework, home play at the end of this week, is actually to go away and listen to my interview with Adam and actually put into practice some of the ideas that he's sharing. And one of the really wonderful ideas that he had to share with me was, I'd like you to keep a food diary. over the next week, and you've actually got access to a pro forma of a food diary through the AV Diet ebook, which you can access through advitalityforlife.com, and you've all got access to that. There is a food diary in there, and I'd like you to print it out and fill it in over the next week. And added to that, I'd like you to add the tip that Adam shared with me and that you can listen to in my interview with him. And he talks about panning for gold. He talked about recording successes and victories and literally cranking up the pleasure with those, because one of the challenges that people often have when they begin to make changes like this is that all they seem to do is beat themselves up for making mistakes. Look, nobody's perfect all of the time. As Mike and the Mechanics say in the song, it really is not possible to be perfect all of the time. You can't eat broccoli for breakfast every day and feel great. I just don't believe it's possible, because you need a balanced diet. You need, as I said, fats, carbohydrates, proteins. You also need to exist with the rest of society. And I believe that you actually have to lead a natural, normal life, and that's why my approach actually is not perfect. And one of the criticisms I had levied at it, for example, today, was, why are you advocating people eating a high-bran fibre cereal for breakfast? Well, quite simply because it's one of the best ways of cleansing the colon, getting a good level of fibre, at least half of your daily fibre intake in one go at breakfast, keeping you full through the morning, giving you some carbohydrates, giving you some nutrients. If you just have literally salad or broccoli for breakfast, you're going to be hungry by 10:30, and that's when you might start snacking on something. So, okay, it's not perfect textbook alkaline diet, but perfect textbook alkaline diet won't work for 99.99% of the population. So that's not where I'm at. I'm actually not going to be a perfectionist. I want to be a realist. And therefore you could levy some criticisms at my approach, and as I say, I've had some of those just today from people who are trying to be perfect all of the time. But if you've ever tried it, it doesn't last very long. So my conjecture is that we're much better off to not to be perfect, just to be realistic, and that's why my approach is actually based in the real world. It's actually about simple things that you can do, and one of those is panning for gold. So actually recording your successes and victories as part of your food diary. Just while I'm on the subject, a food diary is actually very like keeping a spending log or sensible rein on your finances. And when you do it, if you've ever done that either in the financial area or in terms of food, you'll realize what a difference it makes to your choices. And therefore, I'd urge you all to do it and experience the results, because people who keep a food diary lose 60% more weight on average than people who don't. That's been tested, and therefore, as I say, rather like people who keep a sensible rein on their finances, Harv Eker says, if you don't manage what you've already got, how do you expect to get any more? And he's absolutely right in the world of money, and the same is true, if you like, in reverse in the world of food, health and nutrition. So do use a food diary. I've given you a pro forma in the AV diet, and also pan for gold every day, as Adam says, and you'll get more of a clear sense of that, as I say, when you've listened to his interview. Now, what all of this will enable you to do is to reach what I call the tipping point. Now, Malcolm Gladwell has written a tremendous book called The Tipping Point, and it fits really well with Jeff Olson's Slight Edge, because as you make small, simple changes day after day after day, you will literally reach the tipping point. And those of you who are already using the Abraham Hicks meditation series CDs, which I thoroughly recommend, by the way, I'd urge you all to be using those, because they will make a massive difference to your results too, will appreciate the value of the tipping point in so many different aspects. Those meditations cover general well-being, financial abundance, physical well-being, and relationships, and you reach the tipping point on all of those when you apply some simple changes that we're going to be talking through. So this might sound like philosophy. It's not. It's actually designed to be very, very practical, because I know that so many approaches don't even touch these areas, and that's one of the reasons why people end up being crippled, frustrated and pained by the experience, and literally damaged to the point where they don't know what to believe anymore. And I've certainly experienced some of that in talking to people over the last week or so, and I just don't want that anymore. It's not helpful for you. It's not helpful for your success. So one of the things I'd also like to talk about is your peer group. Have you noticed that everybody's an expert in this area. I certainly have. I'll tell you what, I've never met so many experts because we're all human. We've all had experiences of health, nutrition, overweight, underweight, but realistically you should only be listening to people who have the results to back up what it is they have to say. And there's so much information out there. You made it through the clutter. You've made it through the misinformation. I just ask you to do what I'm asking you to do, step after step after step, then experience the results in your body, and then decide whether or not it really works. And so you might have to suspend a little bit of belief or disbelief to start with, and you will get people saying, you want to try the cabbage diet, you want to try the grapefruit and egg diet, you want to try this, that and the other. Everybody's an expert. But please, it's important that you put all of the other approaches on one side while we go through the next 6 weeks, and you just allow me to coach you through the steps that I know will change your life. I absolutely know it. Because there is so much conflicting advice out there, and I think many of you just given up knowing who to believe anymore. Therefore, it's really important that you surround yourself with people who are successful in this area. And for that reason, I've created the membership site, the peer group, at advitalityforlife.com. And I'd really, really request all of you to go in there, introduce yourself on the forum, and integrate and mix and post stuff, because this is how you're going to create the peer group that will really work for you individually and collectively. Because the peer group's a challenge, let's face it. You know, we all hang around with people who have certain habits and patterns, and probably the person who it's most important to enlist the support of is what I've termed here your significant other, your partner, your spouse, the person that you spend most time with. It's really important that they're enrolled to some extent in what you're doing, because I have seen in the past where significant others have had the power to destabilize changes that people have been making. What do you want to do that for? Oh, another fad diet that you're starting. Oh, grief, how long is this one going to last? You know, the sort of slightly cynical, snide remarks, which probably come from a place of love based on some of the issues that we've been talking about, but realistically are not going to help you make the changes that you need to make. So whatever you are able to do to enroll or to enlist the support of the most significant other person in your life, please do it, because it will really help you handle any potential challenges that may arise from either them or from anyone else. Because if the pair of you, for example, go out for a meal at friends and you want to make a healthy choice, you don't have to be rude about it, but you may need the support of somebody else to feel less than a little awkward. I'm not asking you to stop eating anything. As I said when I gave you the overview, I actually don't want you to give anything up for Lent, but what I do want you to do is to make some better choices, and you may need some support being able to do that. Which brings me on to what to do when you go out with friends. Now, in my experience, this is one of the biggest challenges that people have with changes to habits and patterns in the area of healthy eating. One of the simple things that you can do is, if you're going out to a restaurant, actually look up on the internet first. Have a look at the menu first on the internet, or phone them up for a menu, go around and get one, and actually take the pressure off yourself when you get there by having made an informed, relaxed, sensible, healthy choice about what you're going to eat. Because in my experience, one of the areas where people are challenged most is that they're literally on the spot, out with friends, and the friends say, oh, go on, have that, you'll be all right, it'll be okay. Now look, you can eat what you like, but we are the sum of our choices. And so in helping you make healthy choices in the weeks ahead and for the rest of your life, you are going to need to be able to handle the peer group. And your friends, your peers may or may not be willing to go along with this sort of process that you're involved in. The chances are they won't quite get it. It's not a diet, like I say, so it doesn't ban anything. It doesn't say you can't eat this, you can't eat that, you've got to count points, you can have treats. It doesn't do that. There's no calorie counting involved. And I'm hoping that's going to come as a relief to many of you who are probably completely numb and desperate at the thought of having to do any more of that. But just enroll your friends a little bit as well. Talk to them about it. Show them the intro seminar if you want to. Show them around the website at Vitality for Life. You know, give them a sense of what this is about and what it's going to do for you based on what it's done for other people. And if they're really your friends, they'll support you with it. Sometimes at times like this, you find out who your friends really are. Above all, it's okay to be different and to make different choices. Now, earlier on in life, the one thing I wanted to be was like everybody else, but I've grown to realize that actually that's completely counterproductive, and I'm unique, I'm different, just like all of you, and it's okay to be different and to make different choices. And for example, let me give you a simple tip. We talked about going out with friends. If there's nothing particularly healthy and sensible on the main course menu, have 2 starters. Have a couple of starters which look moderately healthy, or ask them to make a big portion out of a starter dish, because often you find that starters are healthier than main courses. And we'll particularly come onto this when we talk about food combining, although you don't need to worry about food combining at this stage. I don't want you to worry about anything at this stage. I just want you to allow this process to unfold and have faith that it will work for you, because I can promise that it will. One final point on this, the peer group. You may need to leave some people behind, and I don't mean that in a nasty way. I just mean that there may be people who would never come on this journey with you, and realistically then you have to say, are these the sort of peers that I want to be with indefinitely? Now, I'm not saying leave friendships, relationships, do anything like that, and if you do need to do it in a way that clearly doesn't cause anybody any distress. But all I'm saying is that there are occasions in life when, in order to make the changes we need to make, we may have to leave some people behind, and sometimes they don't even know we've left them behind. And I've heard many people like David Nagel talking about this, and I'm just sort of setting up an expectation, I guess, that not everybody is going to want to support you with this, and therefore sometimes you have to make some tough choices. Which is more important to you, another 10, 15 years of abundant, healthy life, or keeping in with some friends whose ritual routine is the takeaway on the Friday night and several pints of the favourite brew, whatever it is. So some tough choices to be had somewhere down the line. So handling your peer group. Very important. It's one of the challenges that I see most often, but together we can work through it. And again, this is where you can use the forum at Add Vitality for Life. You're going to have a great peer group there, and post questions, get some help, and above all, be different. And it's okay to be different. So I've shared with you lots of stuff there. I'd urge you to listen to this again, but most importantly, think about what it means for your personal journey. Think about what it means for your life and where you're going to need to make some tweaks and some changes and put these ideas into practice and into action, because that's what's going to generate your results. So I spent sort of 35 minutes or so on that because it is a really important component of what we're going to be doing here. Winning the mental game first, and you won't win it in a linear fashion. You'll win it in a series of cycles, but you will win it when you apply the ideas and the principles that I've been sharing with you here. So I'll take some questions on that at the end, but for the next 10 minutes or so I just want to go back into proper hydration, because you'll remember that I talked about this in the overview, and Phil Richards also talked about it in order of importance. It's what you think, what you drink, what you eat. So we're now at what you drink. We're now at number 2 in the 3. How much water do you currently drink each day? Now, I know I've asked you this question. I asked it on the introductory seminar, but it's really important that you do this, because other drinks can dehydrate you. So coffee, alcohol, fizzy drinks, sugary drinks, it's water that really matters. And I'm asking you to be honest with yourself here. There's no point in fooling yourself, but you really need to be drinking a sensible amount of water, because each of the trillions of cells in your body needs water to provide them with electro energy. And I mentioned this in the overview. This is the basis of good health. It's the foundation of good health. And so many people are wandering around in a chronic state of dehydration. And it was quite interesting, the reaction to the overview seminar here, because a lot of people were posting points about, oh, it's very inconvenient when I drink lots of water because I have to go to the toilet more. Well, the point is that you've sort of conditioned yourself not to go to the toilet too much because you're not drinking enough water. But when you break that habit, when you actually hydrate properly, your bladder and kidneys will strengthen. It takes a few weeks, but they will strengthen to the point where it's not inconvenient, quite literally. So these cells need water, and you've got to give it to them. Dr. Batman Helgi, fascinating man, do look him up on the internet, and I've referred to him quite a lot in the AV Diet ebook chapter on hydration. He's talked about the universal healing properties of water, and I won't go into his story. I do urge you to read it, look at it, it's fascinating. And it's the antidote to the pharmaceutical society in which we live in, because so many people are taking pharmaceutical concoctions for symptoms which are simple complications of dehydration. And those concoctions have complicated side effects sometimes too. So, not only is the body not getting the energy it needs from the water, but it's also having to deal with the toxins and all the other things that come from the pharmaceuticals. Because there are 46 to 59 litres of water in your body, and I've got that statistic from the pH Miracle for Weight Loss. I'm looking at a copy of it now. It's a lot of water, isn't it? That's an awful lot of water. But more to the point, we actually lose 2 to 3 litres a day in perspiration alone, and more if you do a job or an occupation that involves a lot of physical exercise, or you take a lot of physical exercise. And therefore you can see that if you're not replacing those 2 to 3 litres of water a day, your system resembles more of a stagnant toxic pond than it does a clean, free-flowing river. And therefore it's very important that just from a point of view of washing toxins away, you're actually replacing the water that you're losing. And can you imagine over a lifetime, if you lose 2 to 3 litres a day and you replace it with half a glass or less and some alcohol, what on earth is happening to the cells of your body? What on earth is happening to your health at a cellular level day after day after day? And it's compounding in a slight edge fashion to give you a very negative result. And that's why such a lot of people are in a chronic state of health. It's so simple. And this information really, really is very, very important. The critical thing here, and this is the one I think that people find so hard to believe, is that our bodies actually don't manifest dehydration well. There have been a lot of studies done with old people, some of whom have actually died of dehydration because they weren't feeling thirsty to the point where they were willing to drink. Quite simply, when we ingest water, it takes a while for it to register, but also the more we ingest, the more actually we want to hydrate up to a certain point. And I need to make this clear, and I did on the overview, you shouldn't be drinking more than 3 to 4 litres a day because you need a certain proportion of essential salts in your body and bloodstream in order to be healthy. And if you're over diluting those, you're not going to be healthy, and some people have done silly things with water, so I'm not advocating that. But the point is that you don't necessarily feel thirsty. If you wait to feel thirsty before you drink anything, you're always going to be dehydrated. You have to force yourself to drink 2 to 3 litres of water. And as I say, this is the foundation for success. And you're going to need some help, which is why I've created a water chart for you. So in the chapter of the AV Diet, which you've all got access to now through addvitalityforlife.com, you'll find a water chart, a sample water chart, and I'd urge you please to complete this methodically and religiously just for a few days while you condition this new habit. Because it's remarkably challenging actually to change the habit of a lifetime of being in an almost permanent state of dehydration to being in a state of good hydration, and you do need some props, you need some help. And again, this is where a buddy, a coach, somebody to be accountable to will really help you. So this proper hydration is the way in which you move towards a gentle acid-alkaline balance. Remember, we're talking about your blood pH being slightly on the alkaline side of the middle, 7.365, and I'll be talking much more about that next week. But proper hydration is where you start to move over to that point. And I've got some tips on actually moving towards alkaline hydration, because if you're able to do that, if your water is in any way alkalizing, then you can see that it's going to be much easier to balance your body chemistry and to deal with all of the typical Western acidic diet and lifestyle, because you are actually providing 2 to 3 litres of alkalinity through the water that you're drinking. Now, the very first base that you need to be at is with a water filter. It's the cheapest solution. It's absolutely, if you have any doubts about your tap water at home, it's a must. Personally, my tap water's okay where I am, and I have something called a water revitalizer. And what this does, it's simply a piece of pipe, a piece of plumbing pipe, which has, if you like, a gun barrel effect inside of it, and the water flows through the gun barrel, and the way it was described to me is that it if you like, turns around in the gun barrel and creates the same effect that you get at the bottom of a waterfall, where all of that water is bubbling. And in doing that, it adds 25% oxygen to the water. Now, you'll know that when you exercise and you bring oxygen up into the brain, you actually feel more alert, you feel more mental clarity, you sleep better. The brain, the blood needs oxygen, and therefore good water will actually add oxygen into your bloodstream, and a water revitalizer is a relatively cheap way of doing that. I got mine from alivewater.co.uk. It's about £200, but you can use it every time you move house. I've taken it out of the previous house I lived in. I've actually had mine for 2.5 years now, and so effectively I've had revitalized water with an extra 25% of oxygen, which for a fixed cost, and it'll last me for the rest of my life. If you want to go a bit further, a water ionizer is another solution, a bit more expensive. A lot of them come from the United States. They're about $2,000 US and above. So it's not a cheap solution, but it's probably a more perfect one than either of the previous two. But that may or may not be within your budget. Another thing that you can do is add what are called pH drops to your water, which you can imagine pH drops actually increase the alkalinity of the solution. You can get those from a number of places on the internet if you just put pH drops into Google. I personally don't use them. I don't find them necessary now, but I guess if you want faster results and you want to alkalize your water, you need to add them in the right proportion. So you usually add about 10 drops to a litre of water. That's as many as you need. Don't add any more, even though it might tell you on the bottle, because that's good marketing. Another alternative is to drink an alkaline bottled water. Now I'm looking at pages 65 to 68 of The pH Miracle for Weight Loss by Dr. Robert O. Young and Shelley Young, and in there are 4 pages of bottled waters. And as I said on the overview webinar, things like Evian, Vittel, Courmayeur, there are a number of waters that are actually have a higher pH, in other words they're more alkaline, and it also tells you which ones are on the acidic side of the scale. I won't name them here and shame them, but they're there for you to read and see. So you can actually do yourself a big favour when you're drinking bottled water in terms of whether you're adding to the alkalinity or the acidity of your bloodstream. So I'd urge everybody again to see if you can get hold of a copy of The pH Miracle for Weight Loss. It's quite a technical book. And what I'm doing, if you like, is debunking some of it and making it very simple. But if you look at that chapter and the page references I've just given you, you can look at all the bottled waters that are readily available there. But above all, build up to your 2 to 3 litres a day, because this is what is going to create the foundation for you. Do it gradually. Don't go from 0 to 60 in 2 days. It will be uncomfortable and difficult. And drink it throughout the day, but particularly first thing in the morning when you get up, because you will have dehydrated during the night. And what I tend to do is I add wheatgrass to my first litre of water in the day, and I have half a litre of wheatgrass before I have my breakfast. It gives me a good alkalizing, energetic start to the day. I then leave it for about 20 minutes, half an hour before I have my breakfast, and then I have the other half litre about half an hour after breakfast. And I actually found that really sets me up for the day. I touched on wheatgrass in the overview. I'd urge all of you to get hold of some wheatgrass. It's very easily available in health food stores. It's not expensive. You don't have to get it through an MLM scheme or anything like that, and it's very, very alkalizing when added to water. So this is another way in which you can move forward quickly. So I've shared lots of information with you today, and before I take questions, I just want to urge you to listen to this again, watch this again, and more particularly take action in the areas where you feel it's sensible, doable, and more importantly, that you feel able to follow through with, because these are the simple steps that will change your life, but only if you make them happen. And therefore what I'm giving you is some some home play. I am your coach for the next 6 weeks. I hope you'll give me that permission, and therefore I want to give you some specific things to do to move your progress forward. And the first of those is to listen to the expert interview with Adam Eason, which I will send you tomorrow. I'll send you the link to download that interview, because he's got some great tips on winning the mental game of weight loss and health. And I've just touched on them really in the time that I had available today. Great content. It will really help you. Do please bolster your own unique, powerful reasons. Have at least 6 of them. Be very clear what they are. It's almost like your elevator pitch if you're running your own business. It's your 1-minute speech. It's what is really propelling you forward with this. And as I say, it will get you easily and readily to the point of willingness. Please keep a food diary for the next week. Use the pro forma that's in the AV diet and pan for gold, as Adam says. And when you listen to Adam's interview, you'll know exactly what that means in more detail, although I have covered it in overview. It's all about recording your successes and cranking up the pleasure on those. Please build up to 2 to 3 litres of water each day, and add your wheatgrass for extra alkalinity. If the wheatgrass tastes a little bit unusual to start with, shall I say, just dilute it. So put slightly less wheatgrass in and then slightly increase the strength, but never put more than a teaspoon or teaspoon and a half of wheatgrass in a heaped teaspoon and a half of wheatgrass in a litre of water, because it's going to get too strong otherwise. And please read ahead a little bit so that we're all ready for next week. Read chapter 3 of the AV diet, which is titled Alkalizing to Add Vitality. So you'll be able to really get a grip, get some momentum, get some traction with what we're going to be talking about next week. And it's no accident that I haven't covered that first, because for the reasons that I gave you earlier, your thoughts, your mental game, and what you drink is higher up the batting order. It's more important than the amount of green vegetables that you can ram down you. Now, that's not the essence of what alkalizing is all about, but some people sometimes see it that way, and therefore I just want to make it clear that there are a lot of other things that we need to create in the foundation, which we've covered today, that will enable you to alkalize to add vitality to much better effect. So that's what we'll be talking about next week, the ability to move your blood pH into the 7.35 to 7.45 range, which is the optimally healthy range, and is the range at which you won't hold on to fat around the middle, that you'll feel great, that you'll be energetic, that your longevity will be at its optimal, and that you will literally squeeze the most juice out of life. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to open up the panel. I'm going to take some questions, and let's see what we've got coming through here. So please do post some questions for me. So I've got a question coming up here from Angela. Let me just open up the question box here. I think just before I do that, what I'm actually going to do is stop the recording. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I'd urge you to listen to it all again and make the most of this fantastic information, put it into action, and it will change your life.